Let's talk to Alfonso, who's calling in from Washington State. Alfonso, I believe you've called into Truth Wanted before. What's going on, Alfonso?
Yeah, I love the show and I love what y'all do. And y'all were talking about prayer, and I've been having an ongoing discussion with there's a Bible study group that I go to about prayer and how it's I don't know. I feel like it's something that you're kind of taking away the responsibility and the that prayer can become negative, especially if you're trying to like pray for somebody to see or for me to have a new car or something like that. I think as a Christian, I think of it as going against God's blessings, and as a human being, it's causing a I don't know. I no longer have to feel bad about somebody else.
Yeah, prayer is kind of like a gambling exercise, isn't it? Because it's like, I'm going to be praying that this thing happens, the thing that I really, really want. And I may not do any preparations towards this goal, or I may not be helping this thing out in any material way possible, but I'm just going to hope, basically, that this thing works out. Like, that's definitely a sort of a certain view you can have about prayer. I think prayer for me when I was a Christian was definitely more about the anxiety reducing, right? It's like, oh, I have a test, I should pray about this, or I'm dealing with an internal struggle, I should pray about this. That's pretty much what it always was for me. But there is definitely like a, man, I really hope this thing turns out well, I'm gonna pray for you sort of aspect to it, right?
Yeah, for sure. And that's it's something that I really get into good discussions about. So when it kind of came up, I was like, oh, yeah, it's
that's good.
I guess it's hard to talk about prayer to non-prayer people, I suppose. I'm generally, when I have these discussions, it's with people that do pray. But I guess I say we all have our own kind of relationship with our Maker, and whatever that means. I think as an atheist, we have our own form of prayer. Just kind of depending on what, reading Carl Sagan to me is my.
I push back on that slightly. Sorry to cut you off there, Alfonso. But I would push back on that because prayer, as far as I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, is beseeching another power higher than you, someone who has more influence over the world than you, in your case God, but people's cases maybe other spirits, to intercede, to change the world in some way, usually in your favor, but maybe in someone else's. But when I read a science textbook or listen to a podcast like talking about some knowledge that's been gained, or watch a YouTube video from like Kurzgesagt or something talking about space, I'm not beseeching them to change the world. In fact, often they are telling me, here's how the world is. There isn't much that can be done about it. You better hope that like a neutron star doesn't point its particle beam at us, because there's nothing we can do to stop that from annihilating us. So quite opposite. I find a lot of the things that I do when I'm interacting with my worldview, science, humanism, is a stark refutation of the ability to overall change the world outside of our own personal actions.
I'm going to push back on your pushback, Jamie, because prayer is a multitude of things. There are definitely traditions within the Christian church of prayer being more as an act of liturgy, but also as an act of meditation, right? And an act of mindfulness. If you look at the Eastern Fathers specifically, right, when they talk about their practice in reading the Bible, they thought that you could look at a verse from the Bible for like an hour, and that form of like meditation is also kind of a prayer. It's like this, like it's being in communion with God in some ways. It's sometimes just being in its presence. It's not necessarily asking for a favor. It's sometimes just a way to connect with the divine. And I think what Alfonso is saying, that in the atheist school of thought, since we don't have an idea of divinity, we may find things larger than ourselves or something that can give us awe or inspire wonder. And that may be an accessible metaphor to count it as prayer, even though there's nothing maybe metaphysical happening there, but there's something that can be related to on the human experiential level that could be identified as prayer. Would you say that's fair, Alfonso?
I like that. Yeah, because I try to approach it in a way that a Christian can understand. I try to speak their language on it, and kind of what you said is really spot on. It's it's that time of reflection and meditation, and where like even like reading the Bible is a form of prayer. But again, reading the Bible when we're doing that and we literally take it like literally, it's I think that's where kind of the problems come in, because we each have our own relationship with our Maker, and whatever that means is, I think our own way. And so for any other atheist to tell me how, like, because I think we all have kind of a spiritualness to us, and it's connected in different ways. Buddhism, meditation, and so. Yeah, I think that for a Christian, one Christian tell another that this is what a Bible verse means and this is what it means to pray is I don't know. It's you know the mind of God is kind of how I put it, and that is a sin in itself.
To take on board, fair points both, and I like the phrasing. Relationship with your Maker. Like, of course, as an atheist, I do not believe that there is a God or an intelligence to it. But I was, quote unquote, made by the universe. Like, the forces of nature are what put me where I am. And they are much bigger and more complex than I could ever comprehend. So, yeah, times of mindfulness and contemplation about those concepts and my place within the universe, guided by the words of people like Sagan and Einstein and stuff. Yeah, I suppose I could term that as a sort of a scientist's prayer.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
I really think that.
Go ahead, Alfonso.
I think it's in our DNA that to kind of have this craving for this. I think religion's been in our culture for so long that it's a part of us, and I think that it's kind of we have to kind of physically separate ourselves from that. Well, some have to, I think. But yeah, and anyway.
Yeah, one could say DNA. I would say we human beings. We every day we're running out of ways to define human beings as human beings, because AI is advancing and humanity seems to be weirder as a thing, separate from everything else in the world on an everyday basis. Like we're slowly losing our sense of self. But one thing humans can do that most other animals can't do, I should say, is this idea of like the identity of self, right? And self-reflection, being able to ask questions, so far seems to be a uniquely human thing. There's allegedly been a question asked by I think it was Coco the gorilla of all gorillas that was been very controversial, but so far we may be one of the only animals to concretely ask questions, right? And our sense of self-awareness comes with the cost of like knowing that we're very small in a universe that's very, very big. And I think that contrast sort of develops that habit of spirituality within us, right? To see some things as more meaningful than they maybe necessarily are. So like when I hear you say it's in our DNA, that's my interpretation of that, is I think that like our self-awareness and our consciousness within that has to be rectified in a world that seemingly doesn't give a shit or refuses to give a shit because it can't give a shit. It's not capable of it. So we kind of come up with these systems of thought to kind of placate that, I think. I don't know. That's my take, but
and a basic craving for truth and comprehension. Like as much as I have beef with organized religion specifically and religion as a concept, I will always say that it is still in the same vein as things like philosophy and science. We're in a world and we want to know more about it. How do we go about that? What is the truth? How do we comprehend that truth? So yeah, I can see that analogs can be drawn. I may use different terminology. I will always stay away from the word prayer because it has very specific cultural baggage attached to it. But the concepts around it, yeah, we can talk about that, and I'm happy to push back a little bit less, I suppose.
There you go.
Yeah, I think that one.
Go ahead, Alfonso.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. We'll finish up with you.
Of self-reflection is, is the I don't know if you've heard of Bunny the talking dog. It's this dog that
is that the dog on TikTok that like presses the buttons and can say stuff?
Yeah, my dog has probably about 20 buttons that he's able to, he understands time and those tomorrow. And I'm curious about at the end of his life, what that's going to be like. Is he going to have a reflection or understanding on that? And I think that's all the prayer and the religion and stuff kind of are kind of appease our knowledge that we have an end.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah,
anyway,
until we solve the problem of hard consciousness, and then we'll be able to figure out all kinds of things about people. But we haven't done that yet. So yeah, and animals, of course. But yeah, it is fascinating that religion kind of serves as a stopgap in between that lack of knowledge, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Alfonso,
I'm going to go ahead and let you go because we got some other folks on the line that want to talk to us. But thank you so much for bringing this topic of conversation. I like this a lot, and I appreciate you calling in. Hope you have a good weekend, and I look forward to hearing from you again because Alfonso brings some good topics in, I think.
Interesting. Yeah.
I like that a lot. Jamie, what did you think?
I'm always happy to, like I say, I had a view on it, and I think that I'm happy to sort of modify that view a little bit because of the, I don't want to be too narrow on these things. So thank you, Dan and Alfonso, for letting me look at the idea of prayer as meditation, as reflection, as communication with the world we're in, rather than just a very narrow, like asking for something to change. So yeah, we're not a monolith.
All learning. We're on
Yeah.
our journey. Don't worry, crew. That's not a copyrighted song. That's a Dan original right there. So YouTube won't flag us. We're very strictly not allowed to sing anything ever on this show. So I take relish in moments like that where I can just sing a song